The unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect truth is seldom met with, even in 100,000 myriad kalpas. Now we can see and hear it, we can remember and accept it. I vow to make the Buddha's truth one with myself. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. Well, I'd like to welcome everybody. It's really nice to see lots of you. Can I see all of them? I can't see all of them. I can see some of you. How can I see more of them?
If you click on that area.
Hang on a minute. The screen back and forth. Ha, lovely. It takes a minute to load up, but it's really nice to see you. Yeah. Good. There's another one. No, I have to go back again. Now what about, I could go back again. Okay. I'm new to this.
The arrow.
I see the arrow. Oh, okay, we got it. Good. That's nice to see you all. Yes. It's great. Great. Nice. Very nice to see everybody. Thank you for coming for this retreat, for signing up. I think it's the biggest one we've ever had, actually. Partly because it's an online one, and so people who can't come here can join. But it's just really nice to see you all. Well, as we know, our subject for this retreat is training with the issues of our time, help and healing from the Buddha's teachings. And it's a sign that we're all interested in this subject because of so many of us actually wanting to talk about this, hear about it, and help each other understand or make some sense of, or at least work with what's going on in our world and just do our best with it. And as you know, we're going to talk about just the three most pressing issues that I could think of for our present time. There's climate change, there's a global pandemic, and there's racism. And all of them are pressing right now. And they all actually work together. They all affect each other. And they're all affected by some of the same kind of causes. And so we're just going to look at them and see. But this is not going to be a political forum. We're not going to get into politics if we can help it. Although politics will affect all these things and how people respond to them, we're not going to get all hot and cross about politics, if you can possibly help it. So we're going to stay away from that if we can, and actually talk more about the issues themselves and how we can train with them, how we can respond to them, how we can work with them, and help both ourselves and others from a Buddhist perspective, not from judgment or division. Because politics tend to be very divisive. People have different views, we all have different views. So we just thought to talk about the issues themselves and how we can respond as Buddhists. And that's why we have the title we do, Training with the Issues of Our Time, Help and Healing from the Buddha's Teachings. So to ground ourselves in that, I think will be really helpful for us for this week. Well, each morning, as you know, you've seen the schedule, we have a Dharma talk each morning. And each afternoon, nearly every afternoon, we'll have a discussion. And during our discussions, we'll welcome questions and, discussion. It won't be just question and answer, we'll be discussing among ourselves. There's going to be lots of us, so it might be a bit of a challenge, but I think we can do it. As I said, we'll try not to get into politics because we get to it all hot and cross and judgmental if we do, and we don't want to do that. And especially with an election year, we want to just kind of keep some perspective, as it were. So if any of us get a little bit heated, we will try to come back to stillness a bit. Not to shut somebody up, but just say, let's just go back to what we're actually trying to do here, to just to see things from a wider perspective, the Dharma, not from our little view so much. We're not trying to avoid the issues. We're trying to see them with a clear eye, with wisdom and compassion, not with judgment. Well, during the time of the Buddha, there were all sorts of social issues. Some of them are very familiar to us. There was great social inequality, injustice, poverty, sickness, wars, political maneuverings, people trying to take over each other's kingdoms, grabs for power. It all sounds very familiar. And the Buddha lived through all of this. And there were people just like us. You know, they had greed, hate and delusion just like us. People aren't that different. So we have similar things nowadays. But to see how the Buddha responded to these things is really helpful for us. He didn't take sides in these things. Although his own kinsmen would get into battles and fights, he didn't get involved in the battles. He tried to prevent them, but he didn't take sides. He would do his best to help people come to harmony and peace and live in peace. He talked to all kinds of people. He didn't make judgments about them. He'd give them advice. When they came to him, he'd give them really good, sound, practical advice about how to live a peaceful, good and harmonious life. He'd talk to kings, courtesans, monks, lay people, merchants, wives, warriors, Brahmins, courtesans, all sorts of people he would talk to. And he would know where they were coming from and be able to talk to them in that way. He didn't say, well, I don't know what he'll be able to talk to farmers because he knew what it was like. Because of his wisdom, he could sympathize and empathize with people, know what it was like. These people in all these different circumstances, just trying to do the best they could. Just like today, all these people, different circumstances, different views, just trying to do their best. So he's an example to us to learn about the issues we're concerned with. We want to educate ourselves, to learn about them, to know how people see these things, not just from one view, but from different views. To keep a balance, to try to understand as deeply as we can, to keep some kind of a balanced view. A Buddhist perspective, not anger and judgment, but wisdom and compassion. That's what we're trying to do. Responding to these issues, we may respond in different ways. Some people are called to social action. Some people like to offer, make donations to organizations that help with some of these causes. Some people write. Some of us, well, all of us actually, with all of this, try to just sit still and see with a clear eye and not with judgment. Doing our best to recognize our own part in all these things. We're not separate from all these things. We're not completely detached from them. They affect us. We're part of it. We're part of our world. We have our own greed and anger and delusion, ignorance to deal with. It's not like these are other people have their, it affects all of us. We're all like this. Well, we've given you a very short reading list. 3 books, I think, and they're all Buddhist texts. We've not suggested books about racism and climate change or articles on the pandemic. There's all kinds of stuff out there, and we don't want to drown in the wealth of information, so we haven't done that. Also, we figure that you probably know better than we do what's good to read and what's helpful and what's more likely to be accurate or dispassionate than we might. So we've left all that to you. But the books we've suggested, the texts we've suggested are Buddhist texts, because this is the teachings of the Buddha and our own lineage, our own tradition. So that's what we've done. And it's good to learn about the issues. We're not trying to just avoid them, just say, oh, we're just Buddhists, we just sit up here and, we're not worried about all that. We're all here, part of this retreat, because we're concerned about these things, because they are part of our world. We are part of our world. They affect all of us. We're all part of the issues. We're all part of it. We're not separate. We're deeply embedded in all these things. And if you can see that, see how we're embedded, and see how we can help both ourselves and other beings, whether in visible or invisible ways, even if just simply by offering merit, simply by sitting still. It's not just sitting still, because that's a very powerful force for the good. Sitting still without anger and recrimination or judgment, or these must be right and those are not right, and but to see that everybody actually has their own valid point of view, no matter what it might look like to us. We don't know where people are coming from. You don't know what they've been through. We don't know what their experience is, or what they haven't been through, what they have not experienced, and what they don't know about. We don't know. So if we can keep an open mind with kindness and the wide view, the Buddha's wide view, that was his great thing, he'd see with the wide and the long view, then that will help us to be wiser, kinder, more compassionate. To see the different angles that people are coming from. To read about people who have a completely different view of things from us, a completely different experience, and to take them seriously and to respect them, respect those different viewpoints. I think it's very, very helpful. Because when you read about a totally different viewpoint, you might think, and you think, wait a minute, that makes sense from their point of view. Maybe it makes sense in any case, from anybody's point of view. I hadn't thought of that. Or, that's what this person has been through. I have not experienced that. And I can understand maybe a little bit better what some of these things are. Somebody, here we are at Shasta Abbey, locked down, but we all have each other. We're not in a little house by ourselves, not able to go out, and then busting to go outside to the beach, I can kind of sympathize with that, All these different things, you can think, that's awful, but then actually, can we sympathize? Can we sympathize with people who don't understand about what it's like to feel looked down upon, because we have no idea that we're doing it or that people are doing it? And climate change, some of us are oblivious, All these things, we can educate ourselves, we can look and see, and we can try to understand the different points of view. I think it's really helpful. And during these talks, some of us will be talking about the issues themselves, and we'll all be also bringing it back to the Dharma, bringing it back to training, bringing it back to the teaching of the Buddha and of our lineage. So, if we can understand where people are coming from, we can empathize, we can sympathize more, and have respect for people. To be less fearful of what we don't know. People are afraid of what they don't know, what other people's completely different view. They think, whoa, But actually, it's just another human being like us. We're all the same. We just have different views, different experience of life, but they're all fundamentally the same kind of human being. Try to come to harmony. Respect each other, take care of each other, regardless of our differences. This is what we're trying to do. Well, for this retreat, we've sent you a recommended schedule. And it's recommended because it can really help people doing the retreat at home. With our last week-long retreat, people found it really helpful to actually be meditating at home, doing their working meditation at home in their own house, cleaning their own house, making their own lunch. Kind of brings the monastery to your own home and makes you feel more part of the whole thing. We're all actually together, really, and it helps to bring that home to people. So there's an advantage to having an online retreat. Although in many ways it's much nicer to be together. You can see things that are actually helpful, just to see the bright side of it, the helpful aspects. People who can't come can join from far away. We've got something like 90 people signed up for this retreat. We've never had 90 people here before. You wouldn't know what to do with them all, but we would do it. But to have so many of us signed up for this is a huge blessing. So there are blessings in our virtual world. So each day, with our schedule, we're starting with meditation and morning service at 6:30 in the morning to ground us all in the Dharma. This is what we start with. This is what we do here, as you know. And we recommend that you do this too. And if you can't join us at 6:30 in the morning, you might do your own meditation and morning service when you can. If you can't get up at 6:30 or 6 o'clock, don't worry, just do it when you can. And because it's so helpful, it sets the tone for the day and for the talks, the discussions, and so forth. And all our other recommendations, staying away from distractions, not going out unless you really have to, not browsing on the internet, not reading other things in Buddhist texts. It's really helpful to do those things, to just not get distracted as much as you can. Keeping quiet. That might be different from everybody, because if you have a family who's not part of this retreat, it might be hard to keep quiet. Just do your best. They probably know you're doing this retreat and they'll be sympathetic. If there's some of you and you're all doing it together, well, so much the better. You can help each other. But everybody has a different situation. We all have our own different karma. Even us here in the monastery, we all have different situations. We're all slightly different people. So everybody has a different way of training. And here you are at home, training at home, but with us. And I think that's a great blessing. As you've seen also, we're offering spiritual counseling to those who'd like to have it. And you're welcome to call and ask to talk privately to one of our senior monks. You will do that. If you have a question that you were thinking to ask during a discussion and you don't get to ask it, or it's somewhat personal, you might think of talking to a senior monk about it rather than have it go by or not be able to ask. Feel free to do that, because with so many of us, there's a good chance that we won't all be able to ask all our questions all the time. I'd be surprised if we could do that. And yet, somebody else's question may be just what you had wanted to ask. And even if it wasn't, all our questions can help each other. All our comments, our discussions, our experience, because they're not just questions and answers, as I said. We all have our own experience of things that we can offer to each other. And we can all help each other with this. So even if you don't get to say what you wanted to say at a discussion, feel free to call and ask to talk to a senior monk about it, and we will do that. During the discussions, it's nice if we keep more or less on the subject, that we're trying to talk about, not wander away, so we can all benefit from what we talk about. Now, as usual, I've ripped through my little talk in about 12 minutes, probably, because I always do this. But I think really to set the tone of acceptance, compassion, wisdom, patience, tolerance, understanding, trying to understand the things we're talking about, on a deeper level, to understand where people are coming from, to understand where we're coming from, to see our own, as I said, our own greed, anger, and delusion, our own ways of maybe adding to the things or not. But to see how we're all part of it. We're all part of this world. We're all part of all these things. And we can talk together and help each other. And I think that's about it. And I'm really glad to see you all. I'm really glad we're all here together. And we hope maybe all have a really good retreat. So it's just lovely to see you all. Thank you so much. Take care.